Welcome to the Tomorrow's World Today podcast. We sit down with experts, world-changing innovators, creators, and makers to explore how they're taking action to make tomorrow's world a better place for technology, science, innovation, sustainability, the arts, and more. And now, this week's episode.
In this episode of the Tomorrow's World Today podcast, George Davison, who is also the host of Tomorrow's World Today on Science, interviews Patrick Bauer, who is the CEO of Heartland Dental, a dental support organization with over 1,700 locations across the U.S. Patrick discusses his in-depth process for idea generation and goal setting, the importance of prioritizing innovation and teamwork, groundbreaking advancements in dental technology, and offers a glimpse into what the future of dentistry may look like in tomorrow's world. Now here's George.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, George. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm hoping you're going to share some of your story with our audience today.
Mm-hmm.
And you've had quite a promising career. Can you tell us a little bit of background first about Heartland Dental and what do you do and how was the company created?
Well, I was in dental after college. I went to a nursing home industry and then I was looking for a job and I found a small dental group in Minneapolis. And I stayed in Minneapolis for about almost 9.5 years at that group. And in 1995, I met Dr. Workman, who's our founder of Heartland.
Okay.
And I was a president of an association meeting at the time, or a group at the time, and he came to the meeting. And then I stayed in contact with his leadership team. And so we started kind of an administrator school. How do you run a dental practice? How do you help a dental practice? And in 1997, I was just thinking about getting another job, and he called me on February 1st, 1997, said, I'm looking for somebody like you. And I said, why not me? And so then I started up with him, I think on April 10th of 1997. And Rick, Dr. Workman, had started the company probably in the early 80s, grew it, and was in the process of selling part of his company and regrowing. And so he sold 21 of his 29 offices. And so when I started, we had 8 offices, and he wanted to do it again. And thought that we could really help with our systems and how we treated doctors, how to do really well. And then it just kept on growing from there. And he's a man of his word, so I was lucky enough to find a partner that respected me for my expertise, but also I learned so much from him and what they do. And so together, we're kind of yin and yang. He's good at some things that I'm not good at, and I'm good at things that he's not good at.
Sure.
So together, it worked out really well 27 years later. So.
And today you employ how many people?
23,000 people in 40 states.
Wow, 23,000 people in 40 states.
Yep, 40 states.
The concept of Heartland Dental. So if you employ all these people, what is the idea behind Heartland Dental? I mean, what do you do exactly?
Well, we support dentists. So Dr. Workman's a dentist, and so he wanted to always have autonomy in taking care of his patients, but he knew it had to be an easier way. There had to be a way that you didn't have to be an expert in everything, but you could concentrate on really taking care of the patient. And so he grew up in a little town called Effingham, Illinois, which is 12,000 people today, but there was nobody around, no real specialist, so he had to figure out how to do every part of dentistry because the closest endodontist who does root canals is an hour away or in St. Louis. And so his patient said, can you just help me? I don't want to travel 2 hours. And so our whole system is then based upon teaching dentists how to be the best dentists they can be to be in the communities that they serve, because we know if they can do all the procedures, not all the very, very, very complex ones, but the basic work, well then the communities will be served better. And the dentists will be better because they don't have to worry about all the back office stuff that distracts them from taking care of the patient the best way they can be. And then we just keep on helping people.
So you have a lot of employees, and they're not dentists.
Nope.
Your company is a support system of services that let dentists run their practice in a better way.
Yep, that's exactly right.
So the idea was originally founded how? Like, was he?
He was a dentist.
He was a dentist, and he was going through and struggling with these things?
Yeah, well, he worked 50 hours at the chair working on patients. Then he spent another 20 or 30 hours trying to figure out how to be the better business. And that time, he just knew there had to be a better way. So he started hiring them. So it was in the 80s. So if you think about it, that's when Ronald Reagan was president, and they started adding practices because you had amortization. You had faster amortization. And so he would say, well, I'll start a practice there. He'd hire somebody, help that dentist become more successful. And he said, well, look, they don't have the burden. I'm taking the business side. They're taking care of patients, so I'll add another practice here. Look, that doctor's doing really well. I can support him or her, and then they just do another one. So he just kept on growing that way.
Isn't that great?
It is.
So he was a dentist. He lived the challenges and the problems, so he could actually communicate that to the other dentists coming along and say, let me help you because I know that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, you're not going to like this part. So
That's
just
great.
take care of the patients. Yeah,
That's good innovation.
It is. It's amazing.
Maybe you can walk us back in time a little bit, to when you were in middle school or high school. Talk to us a little bit about your education.
Well, I was a good student, so I was always in the top of the class, just because my mom and dad made me study. So I had to study. Even if I was going to work, even at 12 or 11, I had to get good grades. And if I didn't get good grades, it didn't go well at home. So I had to have good grades. And so it was pretty easy for me to get good grades. So I was lucky, fortunate but we read when we were little, we read all the time because there wasn't a lot of TV back then. So it was we read books after books after books. And so I think that made a big difference. And then as I kept on getting older, I knew that because I had to figure out how I was going to do it, that writing down goals is probably what changed my life. I read a book when I was a senior in high school called The Magic of Thinking Big, and it changed my life because it then talked about when you write down goals, you have a much higher chance of hitting them than if you don't. Mm-hmm. And so that goal, I look at my brothers and sisters, and I was probably the only one that had written goals. And that made a big difference in my life because I knew what I wanted. I knew at some point, literally when I was 17 or 18, I said, I want to run a company someday. I know I want to do that. I wanted to be in healthcare, but I didn't know if I was going to be because my dad was in healthcare. So he was an ambulance driver, and then he started an ambulance association and ran it for a hospital. So that's what he did for a living. And it was kind of cool because he was in medicine and he was running, a particular department at a particular hospital. Right. And so I always was interested in that. And so, but the goal writing probably is what separated me from others.
And then can you take me back to what was your first experience with work? If I remember correctly, you were pretty young. And walk me back through that again, would you please?
Well, I wasn't going to get any money from anybody, so I had to make my own money, whether I wanted candy, whether I wanted to have new shoes. So I had to figure out ways, and I remember the Lions Club when I was probably 11 or 12. And the Lions Club came and they were going to do a circus in town. So we had to call people to look for donations for the circus to come to town. And so I did that because I had to make money. And so I would call people, and I was actually like the number one sales guy, which at 11 or 12 years old. I had a paper route, which was not fun because you had to get up really, really early in the morning, but I had to do it, and I couldn't get bad reports. I couldn't have, they couldn't complain about me not showing up. And so my parents were pretty strict on making sure you do what you say you're going to do. Mm-hmm. Don't just say you're going to do it, but you have to follow through. So they were pretty clear with the rules. The rules are, if there's a problem, you probably caused it. So you better shape up.
Right.
And so that discipline helped me. I didn't always like it, but that discipline at 11, 12, 13, that we had to clean our room every day. We had to, because my mom and dad were both working, and if they came home and the house wasn't clean, it wasn't a good day. So we had to do a lot of work. So it was a lot of work, but they were very loving too. So it wasn't they were. Of
course, or they wouldn't have held you accountable.
Yeah, right, exactly. They loved me, and that's why they did it.
Of course. So just from the perspective of parents holding us accountable, and when we're younger, that's a real thing. Eventually we learn how to hold ourselves accountable. Mm-hmm. How about, did you have any mentors?
Every place I worked, I had a mentor. So everywhere that I went, either it was an outside person, so Don Clay was a guy I'll never forget when I was at Metro, the first dental group I was with for almost 10 years. He was my mentor. He helped me understand how to lead people. Before that, it was Betty Clark, who was at Redline Medimart where I was. She helped me understand how to become a better manager, a better supervisor. She taught me put me through classes to be the best that I could be. there was always a mentor wherever I worked. Rick's my mentor, was my original mentor, but now I have Dr. Gerald Bell, who's 85, and he's just wisdom. And so I still meet with him once a quarter to help me think through my issues, through my problems. But having a sounding board to just talk to somebody that I know that I can trust and is not going to judge me, it's a big deal. I mean, in other words, I didn't report to them all the time. They were just somebody that I could talk to about what are they doing with their career, how should I act in different areas in different ways, and that helped me almost every time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a beautiful thing when mentors are in your life and they care about you. They're trying to help you, make a better track.
Yeah.
It's a selfless act, right? They're people who are donating their time and wisdom.
Yeah,
right?
It's beautiful.
Let's go back to high school for a minute. And if you could think of one thing to do over again in high school or maybe your early college days, what would it be? And if you could think in terms of like your career development.
I don't like to look back and say, I wish I could have done that. The only thing, I didn't go to a traditional college. So I went to 2 years and then I had to go later. And if I had to go over again, I wish my parents would have said, no, go to a 4-year now. And so it kind of took me a step back because I said, okay, you don't have a degree. So then I'm like, okay, how am I overcome that? Because I have to go to school eventually.
Right.
So that 2-year I would have been better off going on to a 4. But I don't know if I'd be here today. So it's hard to judge it because it also gave me focus to make sure I was building my skills at a different level and really digging into. I read every book I could possibly read. I listened to and watched everything I could about being the best leader you could be and best person you can be. And I think so that I probably tried to overcompensate for some of that.
Yes.
But my parents, well, good for you. You're at least going to school. So they were, you do whatever you want to do type of people. And so I think if I would have done it, I would have done that differently, I think.
So if I was a young guy looking to maybe run a company one day, did you have a couple things sticking out in your mind? What would be your recommendations?
Writing goals. So the first thing is now I have what I call the 7 domains of happiness, which is what Dr. Bell would talk about, but really having very clear, specific goals, SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, return on investment, and time parameter. What do you want to do in the next 12 months? So every writing down 10 things that I want to accomplish. Only one can be about money, so it's not just about money, it's about being a better person. So having written goals is the first thing. Second thing is be the best in the job you are today. So in other words, people are always telling me, well, I'd like to be that job someday. Well, you got to be the best at this job that you're in today, because if you do that well, you'll be recognized. People know people who really do their job well. They're looking for people because everybody's looking for better people. And if they have somebody in front of them because they do a great job, just be the best you can be in the job that you have. You can't worry about the next job because you don't have it yet. But if you're the best at that, so I've never had to ask for a raise, I've never had to ask for a promotion because people recognize I just was going to be the best I could be at the job that I have today and be very clear about what my expectations are and over-exceed them. That's really the only 2 things that I would recommend. You gotta love life. I mean, you gotta have fun.
Sure. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. In the world that we operate in, we realize the world we're in is not perfect, and we fail at certain things. Surely you had some difficult challenges when you were in school. Walk us through one of your failures of any type, and how did you climb on top of that failure and keep moving through life?
I probably should have been fired a few times in my life for screwing off at work. And I've had people who gave me a second chance, but I screwed up, like whether I smoked, dumb, but I used to smoke. And I would smoke and take a smoke break when I probably shouldn't have. And I should have been fired. And the guy gave me a break. And so I didn't want to make that mistake again because he didn't have to give me another break. He just did. And so I that failure of having them tell your parents and going home and having to say, yeah, I should be fired, and your dad saying, yeah, you should be fired, and having to say, but I'm going to try harder next time. It's all I can do because I really screwed up.
Yeah,
and
it's in the past.
It's in the past, but I screwed up, and that guy gave me another chance, and he didn't have to, and so I didn't want to let him down again.
There you go. Good stuff. That's growing up stuff, right?
Yeah, it is.
And let's say in a company or a team, people often have many ideas for ways to improve things or solve a problem. How do you how does Heartland Dental select and prioritize which ideas to pursue and which ones to leave on the back burner?
Oh, it's probably what we spend the most time on is we start a process for our planning in August for the next year. And that August one starts with all the managers and throughout the whole company. So we have a practice manager in every practice. There's 1,775 practices today, something like that. And then you have all the managers and supervisors in the support office. And so what we ask them is, hey, what do you think the problems that we need to solve in the company are, and what ideas you have to try to solve those? So we get all of that information first. Then we gather all that, we all read it all and say, okay, well now we go to the directors. So the directors, we meet with the directors at an off-site for 2 days and say, okay, now that you've read all this information, we also have them go out to the external environment and say, okay, what do you see that's coming at us that we need to solve for? Mm-hmm. So what's changing? What technologies are changing? What's the tomorrow thing that's going to hit us? And what do you see that we can do? And so we listen to them, we have them write down what they think our top 10 goals should be for the year. So then we take all that information, then I get all my VPs together, and I've got probably 25. So then we say, okay, you guys have heard what the managers and supervisors said, you've heard what the directors say. What do you guys think we should come up with? What are the ideas that we have that we should work on that you've heard? And then we get just my team, and we do the final prioritization of all of that work on what we should accomplish. And then we set our top 10 goals. Now that then relates down to every human. So then every human has their own top 10 goals. So if you think about it, I have 23,000 people times 10 goals. That's 230,000 goals in our company. And everybody wants to achieve their goals. And so that's where it becomes tricky because they want to do it, but the priorities of the company are these 10 things. So how do they fit these into these? Right. And so it's a whole process that we go through, and then each team then reviews their top 10 goals so everybody knows what they're working on, and then we review our goals with the directors and the vice president. So it's a whole process.
It's a great process. I've seen
hard.
Similar things. Hard, but you're really lifting people across the board because they are able to attain goals.
Yeah, so. and they're trying to. Everybody's trying to do their best, and so you want to help them become successful, and that's what it helps us do.
Because some people haven't been taught to do goals.
No,
I'm sure.
No,
you're bumping into those people in the world too.
They don't want to do it.
Yeah.
True.
So, how about teamwork? How important is working together as a team at Heartland?
Well, my only job today is to make everybody work hard, smart, and together. Mm-hmm. So all I can do is say, here's our mission, here's our vision, and here's our core values. And we're going to constantly live those. So I'm trying to celebrate the core values that we have, that everybody's living by, and I'm going to try to figure out how to make people work together. So we use one of my, I don't know if he's a mentor, but I've read every one of his books, and I follow his system. That's Patrick Lencioni. Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team. And so my team, once a quarter, gets together and we talk about our dysfunction. How do we work together? How do we make sure that we're communicating? So we have that quarterly. Every Monday I have a team meeting with my team, and we make sure that we're communicating what they're doing. Every Tuesday morning, all of the VPs give a 2 or 3 minute synopsis of what they're working on for the week. So now all 25 VPs are hearing everybody talk about what they're working on. So there's no surprises. Mm-hmm. There's no, but I didn't know you were working on that. I'm working on that. No, there's a lot more communication. Yes. And even with that, we screw up. So we're and then I have one-on-ones with everybody. So it's trying to make sure, and he has a score sheet on the 5 dysfunctions are trust, which everything starts with trust, conflict, accountability, results-oriented, and commitment. So those things have to happen in the team. Mm-hmm. And so we actually grade ourselves. Do we have trust? Do we trust each other? Because if we don't trust each other, most of the time when you don't trust each other, it's because you don't know each other. Right. So once you start to get to know somebody, you have a hard time not liking them. Because they have the same struggles I have. We all have our own issues. We all do our best. Right. And so once you get to know somebody, like they wouldn't know that I have 16 kids. They're like, oh, you have a different perspective. Mm-hmm. I came from a single child. It brings that togetherness. And then conflict. Conflict is really important. We want conflict.
Right.
I want people. So I try to figure out, okay, I think you have a better idea. Everybody needs to tell me their idea. And it's not a democracy, but it is, I want everybody's opinion. If it's not a consensus, I'll make the final decision.
Sure.
But I want everybody's opinion because I need the truth to make the right decision.
Contribution and effort making teamwork happen, right?
It's the hardest thing is to make sure people are working hard, smart, and together.
Right. Not easy.
It's not easy.
So we have all these employees. You're a growing company, correct?
Yep.
How important would you say when you're looking at a potential new hire? Are you looking at work history, academic accomplishments? What are some of the things on the priority list that you're looking for?
Well, I've been taught by Dr. Bell that there are 3 things every job has, and that's technical skills. So do they have the technical ability?
So STEM and STEAM.
So STEM and STEAM. Do they have the ability to do math, all the what I can't
science,
remember.
technology, engineering, art.
Do
math,
they have whatever that job takes? Do they have the technical skills to do it? If you're a dentist, you have to have a dentist license. If you're a hygienist, you have to have a hygiene license. And so if you're a marketing guy, gal, do you have what it takes to do the marketing? Do you have the experience in marketing to know that you can do that technical side of the job? Then the second one is commitment skills, the ability to focus at work and work ethic. So I might ask questions to people of, when did you have your first job? Well, if it was when you started college, your work ethic's going to be tougher.
Yeah.
But if you started when you were 11, I don't have to worry about it. I know that person's gotten feedback about work ethic. So they started when they're 11, 12, 13. Well, then I know that they had responsibility from outside the home. Somebody's giving them feedback as to how they're performing. Farmers have it automatically. So if you grew up on a farm, you have work ethic because you had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and do whatever you have to do. I'm a city boy, so I didn't have to do that. But I had to have a
You're
job.
out there milking the cow.
Exactly.
Getting the egg.
Exactly. And then the third thing is personality and leadership skills. So now I'm looking at what's the personality. Do they have extreme behaviors that I need to be aware of? Are they going to yell at people? Because we have a rule, if you're not nice, you can't work here. So you have to be nice. That doesn't mean you don't have conflict. But you can't be a jerk, you can't yell at people, you can't swear at people. I'm trying to find out if they have extreme behaviors, whether they're too nice, whether they're too mean, whether they're too entrepreneurial. In other words, you can have too high goals and you are trying to look at me, I'm really important. I don't want that either. Or you're too afraid. You're a avoider, you don't want to talk about things. So I'm looking for what extreme behaviors people have. And if they don't have them, then they're likely to be a match culturally, because they're not going to, extreme behaviors really affect the ability to work together. Whether they're going to be a loner and they're going to just do their own thing, I can't have that. So I'm looking for extremes that they might act in certain ways.
Excellent. So there are a lot of future jobs out there at Heartland Dental.
Oh my gosh,
like.
we are hiring.
Hear that? They're hiring.
We are hiring.
All right. So last question. What do you think the next big innovation is going to be in your industry?
Well, Curodont just started. So that ability to change small lesions where you don't ever have to have a filling is a massive change. So we got 2. AI on x-rays. So now, right now, there's probably only 10% of the dentists, maybe not even that much, that have AI in their x-rays. But it's reading off of millions upon millions of x-rays. So it knows what decay is and what it's not.
Yes.
And so that's going to be a massive, eventually every dentist in America will have AI on their x-rays. And there will be no difference between seeing that dentist, that dentist, that dentist, or that dentist. They'll all see the same decay. Well, that changes things for patients because now they know they're going to be treated the same. They're not going to be, this guy's not looking for money. It's very clear. Because sometimes I think dentists are just doing it for the money.
Well, it's when
clear.
everybody's different, you could get the wrong diagnosis from one to another. It's not purposeful.
Yes.
They just read it differently.
Exactly. There's all kinds of things that can happen. And so you will have much more consistent care throughout the United States. Plus you throw Curodont, now I can stop decay before it grows too big.
Curodont is a
peptide that is put on a small, when they say watch the filling before it gets too big, that's when you put it on it, and then it basically grows enamel back So that
on the tooth,
without having to put a filling in, without having any drilling or any shot.
Isn't that fabulous?
It's going to change everything.
So it's kind of like back in the day when they discovered that if you put fluoride in the water, you don't get as many cavities.
Yep.
That's a major innovation in the dental industry, and it's great to hear you're starting to get that spread out to the world.
The whole world.
Well,
it's going to be amazing.
Pat, thank you so much for coming in.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Really, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, everybody, that's another edition of Tomorrow's World Today. Thanks now.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Tomorrow's World Today podcast. Join us next time as we continue to explore the worlds of inspiration, creation, innovation, and production. Discover more at tomorrowsworldtoday.com and connect with us on social media at TWT Explore. And find us wherever podcasts are available.